profile that you get is really very similar no matter how you try to get it.
They often tend to make a very good impression on other people. In general, often tend to be superficially charming.
But they tend to be high on other aspects that have to do with dominance and kind of how you interact with others. They tend to be very assertive. They tend to be a bit gregarious. They tend to be high in excitement seeking.
On the surface, they often present with this kind of convincing facade or mask of normality. So when you first get to know them, they may often seem normal or even maybe healthier than normal.
This person presented with a very caring front. He was worried about me having to work in a prison with very dangerous males, and he was worried how I was feeling about it.
But then once you get to know them a bit better, you see that there's something often a bit more deeply disturbed about them.
I later on discovered that he had actually decapitated his own girlfriend because he felt the girlfriend had been disrespectful to him.
So they'll use coercion and interpersonal violence as ways to accomplish their ends.
Unempathic, they're callous, they're grandiose, they're manipulative.
I'm sure that individuals like Hitler and Stalin were maxed out on these traits, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism too.
Whereas other people tend to cooperate, and other people, on first glance, your tendency is to trust people. Well, psychopaths take advantage of this niche. And what they do is they go around always interacting with new people, taking advantage of them, and then disappear on to the next person.
These individuals start at a very early age. So you can talk to preschool teachers, and they could probably point out the kid that's quite problematic.
Probably something that's based in the genes.
Many of the people who've been in relationships with psychopathic adults display symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and spend years trying to recover their lives.
An individual with high psychopathic traits can con someone and can sort of woo someone through a honeymoon phase of, I'm going to be the most special person in your life.
There may be large numbers of people with psychopathic traits that are living out there in the community.
They really do a good sell and convince individuals to love them, to give parts of their bank account to them, to buy a house together and whatnot.
It's an evolved cheater strategy. We think an evolutionary adaptation.
And when the reckless and irresponsible and completely callous aspects of the disorder show up, the individual is going to be devastated.
We need to have more research that documents the impact of psychopathy on the people who are in relationships with psychopathic individuals.
The psychopaths tend to specifically target fertile-aged women.
They tend to be high on a dimension that we call urgency, which is that they find temptations often difficult to resist.
The psychopaths have more offspring than our other offenders do.
When these relationships lead to children, individuals with psychopathic traits probably make very bad parents.
That they're actually callous and ruthless.
There's certainly also a link between psychopathy and white-collar crime, too, which in some cases may be just as dangerous as other kinds of crime.
The psychopath tends to have fairly poor impulse control. They tend not to be very dutiful. They don't follow up on their obligations. They're irresponsible.
Perhaps even overrepresented in certain occupations, perhaps corporate CEOs, certain occupations associated with risk.
They tend not to be anxious. They tend not to be depressed. They tend not to be self-conscious, so it's awfully hard to embarrass the prototypic psychopath. And they tend to be pretty invulnerable to stress.
As a disorder, psychopathy doesn't meet some of our usual criteria. We don't have evidence that they suffer more than other people. We don't have evidence that they're concerned about themselves.
It's difficult to get them into treatment because they don't believe that it's they themselves that have a problem. It may be the world.
These are not nice individuals to treat.
They feel victimized by others. That's a common thing many psychopaths will happily tell you about.
So if you're the therapist and I'm the psychopath, my goal is to try and manipulate you, exploit you, get what I want. So I don't have the intrinsic motivation to try and change.
It's what we call a taxon. It's a discrete class. That's like, they're just totally different from the rest of us.
Treatment makes them worse.
I mean, if you sort of look at one, main characteristics, that's what we would really notice is they just don't seem to have a conscience.